Hey, welcome to the Pharmacy Residency Podcast, a member of the Pharmacy Podcast Network. It looks like some sites have already sent out interview offers at the end of December, and those first interviews are going to be here in the first 2 weeks of January for pharmacy residencies in 2021. 2021 to 2022 is when the resident would actually go. So the place that you can find it is you just scroll down there, and here's the beginning of the course curriculum. And this is open, whether you're in the course or not. And it says 2021 residency interview Google Sheet offer link. And then there's going to be three things here, and I wanted to go over them. First, there's the Google spreadsheet for residency interview offers. That is going to be this, and we'll go step by step through them. Then there is the link to a Google Sheet for residency opinions. Is this a good residency site? Is it bad? And I'll go through those. And then there's also InPill, which has 184 residencies. And these are pharmacy residency graduates providing a kind of a review of the residency experience at those. And you say, well, 184 isn't that many. Well, having 10% of the available residency sites is pretty decent. So those are the three things I want to go over. Again, go to residency.teachable.com/p/interview to get to this page, and it'll be open for you. So let's go over the first Google spreadsheet for residency interview offers. A lot of social media doesn't like this because it just creates this feeling of, well, if other people are getting interviews and I'm not, what's going on? And I think it does create that kind of tension. But I also think that it's a great resource because, if you are there in the beginning of February, you're trying to figure out what to do, should you apply for a job and things like that. It's nice to know that, hey, they were starting their interview process in December and they've already started looking at people. Okay, so that's something important to know. And so I think this is a valuable service. But let me go through them. So it starts with the state, the city, the site name, PGY1 or PGY2 and specialty. And there are just a few that are on here so far. But there are a couple of PGY2s that are early commit. And what you can do is, I don't know exactly how they do it, but they need to tell the people that applied, if they were not sure if they're going to get an early commit, that I'm sorry, the spot is taken. And then the spreadsheet can give you that information, and you can double check with the RPD. But here, let's start with this. Phase 1 invite, yes or no, and the date. So again, for those of you that are new to this, there's Phase 1 and Phase 2. You do not want to end up in Phase 2. Phase 1, you have about, if you get an interview, ignoring what school of pharmacy you went to, you have about a 60% chance of getting a pharmacy residency for the upcoming year. Obviously, if you don't get an interview, it makes it a lot harder. But that's in Phase 1. In Phase 2, the chances of you getting an interview drop to 13%, or with an interview, the chance of you getting a residency with an interview dropped to close to 13%. So the very first thing is we want to make sure that, we get the Phase 1 invite. And again, still helping with letters of intent if that's something you need. I think the last deadlines are up through the 16th of January. On-site, this doesn't differentiate between online like Zoom and on-site. But I think that what some people have been doing is writing that in, like this is a Zoom call, this is an on-site call. Were you rejected? That's just as valuable. To know that they've started the process, because some may not start till the second week of January because that's when their deadline was, and they won't start until they've got everything. And then, were you waitlisted? And the waitlists tend to not be that long, but a waitlist is really important because some people do reject the residency interview. And you say, how can that possibly be? But I have a video in the residency interview course with a student who had 8 interviews. And you say, oh my gosh, that's great. Well, try coordinating 8 in-person interviews during APPEs. And she made it into kind of an adventure, which was kind of cool. But knowing whether someone's got an interview, a rejection, waitlisted, those are really valuable. Phase 2 invite. So yes, no, and the date. So phase 2 is going to be for those programs that didn't match. So I think last year there were 200 of the 4,000 spots were available. And there were some heavy hitters. Cleveland Clinic, Maryland. There was one in California that was relatively newer, but it was pretty top notch in San Diego. And so phase 2, it has little to do with quality in terms of, oh, well, these are phase 2 ones, the ones that no one wanted. It's actually the other way around. What happened was many of the sites have a certain standard. And if people that they get don't meet the standard, they would rather go into phase 2. And so think of it this way. So you're going to prom and, you and many other people want to, invite the prom queen or the prom king or whatever it is, and they can go with one person. Okay. However, the day before prom, let's say they find out that the person they thought they were going with all of a sudden isn't going and can't make it. But they have to go to prom because they're the king and queen. So now, all of a sudden, there is an opportunity because the person they were going with is gone. So now everybody tries to apply to get to be the date for the king and queen at prom. So same thing here, where a site might not have gotten a ton of interviews before and things like that, and the whole process is kind of drawn out. Phase 2, it is fast and furious. Less than a month, and it's done. I honestly wish phase 1 was like that. Just let's do this. Let's get it over with. Let's just let everybody have off during this time or something like that. But phase 2, that your chances drop to around 13%, and I think it's a little less than that if you were somebody who didn't graduate in this year. Then match day. So if you matched, you can put your information there, accept the congratulations of everybody, etc., etc. So this is the residency interview offers. And again, what this does is it allows you to really understand, okay, these are the sites I applied to. 6 of them have sent out offers. 6 of them have not. And I've not heard from those 6, but looks like no one else has either. Now, that's the thing. It would be nice if this was a completely full sheet, but it doesn't work that way. It's just kind of hit or miss. Hopefully you'll get some information, but definitely the average person is going to apply to 11 sites last year. I think that number will go up to closer to 14 this year, saying that because it's just not as expensive to do the mid-year and all of that stuff. And we're finding that the real conversations are having outside of the showcase. So while the ASHP showcase is great, you have to talk to people, but I'm hearing that the local showcase or the program-specific showcases, those are really the ones that are the deciding factors. Next thing, so somebody sent me that someone made a pharmacy residency programs sheet, and it goes into, okay, here's the program. You can look for your program alphabetically, positive things, negative things, comments, and advice. And the idea is, okay, you've got 5 interview offers. Which ones do you take? And if you take them all, how do you rank them? So now you don't really have enough information. Yeah, you feel like you did great at all 5 interviews, or maybe one of them is easy. But I think there's so much gray area, and it would be nice to know, okay, well, does someone have a positive or negative opinion of the program? But somebody's already done this. Not in this fashion. This would be nice. It's, much easier to use a single spreadsheet that's searchable. But there's a website called inpill.com. And inpill.com has 184 residency programs reviewed by pharmacy residents. I went in and did the thing, so I'm one of those 184. And what it does is it allows you to get a very honest sense of what's going on. Sure, during the showcase, they're showcasing their program, saying the best things about it. But in here, they ask the hard questions that you really need to know. Was staffing that bad? What's the culture there? Is it toxic? Are people just fighting with each other trying to get PGY2s? Is it, does it feel like high school? Does it feel like the RPD doesn't care about you? If you listen to the video that I made in the course, I talked to an RPD who was referred to me by TLDR Pharmacy's Brandon Dyson, and Dr. Dev Chatterjee's kind of conversation with me made it clear why Brandon had such a great experience. Such a great guy, such a great educator. But in life, your immediate superior has more to do with your happiness at a job than anything else I can think of. But inpill.com, you can get in here if you have been a resident at a site and are willing to do a review, or if you're a student who's currently going into the residency process. Okay. All right. So again, what I'm trying to do, pivot from the LOIs. Yes, I'm doing letter of intent still. Yes, I'll help you. And yes, I will help you in phase 2 if you need to refresh your LOI, or if maybe you tried to do it yourself and found out the hard way that, maybe my letter was a bit too generic. Maybe my letter didn't say what it needed to rise up to that, which it really needs to be top 20%. So in school, you've always been kind of conditioned that I get an A, B, or C, but I still pass. In residency world, it's pass, fail, but it's not 95% of the class passes, 5% fail. It's 10 to 20% of the class passes, 80% to 90% of the class fails. So especially with like the UNCs and the Mayos and places that are going to get, at least a couple 100, 200, 300 applications. When you think about the number that are actually going to interview, I mean, you're talking about a failure rate of probably about 85 to 90%. And that's just something that maybe you weren't used to, maybe you weren't ready for. But what I'm doing with the interview prep is I've got the courses, and I mentioned it in a previous episode. The only thing I want to talk about here is the email support. So the one thing that I feel is kind of a gap is that each one of you is like a first-time home buyer. And it's so unfortunate because it is like first-time home buying where you've got this huge purchase that you can mess up very easily. And with home buying, the nice thing is the way it's set up is that an impartial person will help you go look at homes and then get paid by the person who is selling the home. And they, can do everything that needs to be done to support you, get you through the contract, get you into that home in the best circumstances. Here, you can't really go back to your own faculty if you're in the bottom 50%. So we're talking about 7,500 students. If we're talking about half the students, saying there's about 15,000 of you, you can't really go back because if you're in the bottom 50%, you don't really advertise that. And it's really hard for you, especially if you're in the bottom of 10% or something like that, where you're trying to get support, but the thing is that your match rate is horrendous. And the problem is that the interview rate might be very good, but what's happened is that upon interviewing, you didn't get to the ranked high enough. And so it's unfortunate that students think interview is getting you a lot closer. Like if I have 5 interviews, then I have a 92.1% chance of getting a residency. You can have you can have 12 interviews and have a 0% chance of getting a residency. And you can have 1 interview and have almost a 100% chance. Okay. How can that be? Well, for many sites, there is already a leader or a group of leaders in terms of their fitness for the program, whether they did a long-term API with them, whether they have ties through work experience and things like that. But there is a huge drop off between those sites that you have a relationship with and then those you don't. And you say, well, that seems kind of unfair, but they're hiring someone to do a job. We get so caught up in this whole prestige thing, the learning thing. A residency is a year-long job, and they need somebody that can do the job, and someone that they've already had experience with that has already done the job is much less of a risk than somebody who has not. Okay. And so the reason why I wanted to provide this email support is that so you're going to go in and you're going to be hit with these some softball questions, but some things are going to be like, I remember getting a call last year. I had my interview. I was like, I don't understand. You just got your offer. Yeah. I picked up the phone. They called me. I picked up the phone and they said, "Oh, great. You're there. There are 3 of us here. We just want to let you know we're starting your residency interview." And that's called a flash interview. And yeah, to some extent, I think that's unfair. But what they're really saying is, hey, you're going to come in here and you say you're great under pressure, great with critical care, great with acute care. We're going to trust you with children that are 2, 3, 4 pounds. We want to know if you really can handle the pressure. It's on. Okay. And that's what the purpose of something like that would be. And yeah, they'll start you off a little bit easier, but as the interview got on, it was pretty tough. And if that person had just even known that the interview was in the future, they could have done much better. And that's the thing, is that I want you to understand the process, which is why I've recorded almost 2 hours worth of content explaining what it is. Just like I would talk to a first-time home buyer to protect them from spending, because I mean, if you're talking about California and you're coming into the lowest market, you're talking 400 to 600,000. Back east, it was a little bit cheaper. In Baltimore, it was like 350 or something like that. But it is a tragedy when you have a favorite one and maybe you get a flash interview, or maybe it comes too early and you're not ready for it. And you don't really understand the process. You don't understand that actually the first interview you want is the site that you probably want the least. Just to have that experience under your belt, just to know what that was like. Now, some of you are much more prepared than others. Some of you have had courses on getting into residency, and some of you have not had courses like that. Some colleges do it, some colleges don't. And some students already know what they're going to be evaluated on. I've started putting some documents up on the course. So, okay, if you're going to a VA, this is how one VA evaluates your interview. And these are the specific things they'll ask, or the specific things that they'll look for. And so when you see, okay, eye contact and things like that, you know what to start working on as you're sitting here tapping your foot, twiddling your thumbs, pushing refresh on your email. And it's just, I think that there is a learning curve. And if you have not had any course with your college, you absolutely should at least go through the 2 hours and really understand the process. Because, and let me just kind of go to the actual things here. So you have to know how well you match, where you stand in there, because if you're not a top blue chip pick, you want to know, okay, well, I'm going to have to step up my game to get this. Or if you are that blue chip pick, then are you playing more defensively? Going to really just make sure you don't make mistakes rather than being so aggressive. Understanding the residency point system, it has to be fair. I mean, it has to represent diversity across races and genders, but there is no requirement for diversity across pharmacy schools. So again, we've got these kind of 5 different places where you really want to understand it. And you can watch this breaking down the interview day. It's just 15 minutes for free. You can just go to that residency.teachable.com/p/interview for that one. And then what kind of questions and answers? So Rockstar was something that I did in terms of the rock, which is those questions like strengths and weaknesses. And a big mistake people make with the weaknesses is it doesn't have to be a current weakness. It can be a past weakness, which is now a strength. So the ROCK acronym is to rephrase, outline, then you're going to cite evidence, and then you're going to connect it to the site. And most people miss that. They're so busy trying to answer the question and vomit something out, they forget to say, and this is how it matters here. So, a great example would be, what experience do you have in hospital pharmacy? And then they say, okay, I worked it here and I did this, this, and this. Then by saying, and I see that your staffing requirements are every other weekend in this area, I already have experience in that area. That's the last thing where people start scribbling, oh, all right, experience in that area at my hospital. That is the one thing most people miss. And then the STAR question, situation, task. Then the action and the result or resolution. Those two types of mnemonics go with different questions. And you have to, as they're asking the question in your mind, like, okay, this is a ROCK question. This is a foundational question. No, this is a STAR question. This is a situation. Okay, so let me start writing down the situation. And then you put the STAR down on a piece of paper and you start writing the situation down. And just saying, okay, well, let me just gather my thoughts, a couple of notes I just want to put down here. Okay, I've got it down. So here's the situation. Okay, and then RACE STAR was, RACE is one that you use in school to make sure that you are taking evidence from a document. And this one is really, so let's say they give you a case and you're trying to cite literature. Okay, when you're citing that literature, you want to rephrase the question. You want to, there's a couple more pieces to it, but the first part is rephrasing it, then answering it, then citing the evidence, and then explaining the evidence. And so what most people do is just the RAC. They rephrase it if they remember to, they answer the question, they cite the evidence, but they forget to explain it and show that they are competent. The person already knows the answer to the case. What they want is your ability to explain it. And you basically get a 0 if you miss the E. And then the STAR, residency essay writing, so they might put a situational question in an essay. Again, they're very different things that you can do. Okay. All right. Well, that's all I wanted to go over. We're about that 20-minute mark for the drive time. So again, if you need my help, TonyThePharmacist@gmail.com, or go to residency.teachable.com/P/extreme LOI if you need help with letter of intent or CV, or /interview if you need help with the interview and want to take that course. Let me go back to that one here.